Okay, so this is the first episode of a podcast. So should everyone introduce themselves? Do you want to have any kind of pretend names?
No. Hi, my name's Christian. Nice to meet everyone.
I'm Rob, just a guy.
Just a guy.
Just a guy. Hi, my name is Shanice.
And I am Sabina with a Z, but I have a lisp. Okay. So, it's hard to hear that. So, I wanted to do a podcast. We've tried doing podcasts before, but we never really stuck at it. We started the home stuff. I think that's what made me want to start doing again. I saw some of our old videos and I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
The trailer from like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we was in my house. I thought that was so good, but we didn't continue with it. So I wanted to kind of start that back. And I'm also sick of podcasts talking about relationships. Like, guys, I am done with the same topics being spoken about every second. So I wanted to see if we could have another perspective. But really what I wanted to do was focus on, and this is not an insult, ordinary people.
Okay.
So just everyday people's lives, inspiring everyday people. I think sometimes there's a pressure to idolize celebrities. But there are people that are very much living our lives in everyday life that we can get experience and wisdom from. That was what I wanted to kind of achieve. So the name is Black People Are Not a Monolith. And that's for Black people to know.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I think it will be good to see, and of course it doesn't mean just Black people are going to be on the podcast, but I think it's good for Black people to see that Blackness is
varied, diverse, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, and although there is banter in Black card games, you're not Black if. That's fun and that's banterish, but that's what it is. It's banter. We cannot measure Blackness.
Indeed.
Well, in my opinion.
No, that's real.
So this episode, I cannot remember. Well, probably do. I was probably having some breakdown over a boy. This episode is about absentee parents because I was thinking about my experience with dating and the impact on the other person having to deal with my issues of an absentee parent. Although I don't believe I have daddy issues, keep your comments to yourself. There may be some issues underlined from absentee parenting. Whether it's absentee parenting by choice, absentee parenting not by choice. I would say that absentee parenting for me is not by choice per se. So I went to Esther Perel. Have you heard of Esther Perel?
Nope.
What is that?
She's a psychologist.
Okay.
But she focuses on relationships. And I went to one of her, I don't say concerts, but it was in the Apollo.
Okay.
And she's really good. She's very realistic. She talks about how unrealistic we are in terms of like wanting our partner to be a community. Where before we had community, and now we have partners, and we want the partners to be the community. So we want the partner to be the friend, the lover, the this, the that. When back in the day, that was what community would do. It wouldn't be solely the reliant on your person. So it was really good. So I went to that, and we had to play her She Has a Card game. And one of the questions was, what was the conversation you'd like to have again? And I said my dad, and everyone there else said their dad as well. So cosmically, we had matched.
Running theme.
I said that I would want to meet my dad again for the first time. Because I don't think it went very well.
Okay, so with regards to that, why? Why, first off?
Because I was 15.
Okay.
And I was a judgmental 15. So I went from having, in my opinion, an excellent mother to seeing, in my opinion, a not excellent father. And not to me, to his own kids. Because I have to differentiate.
Yeah.
So I went there, and when I saw what I saw, and I wasn't brought up in a family that does pretense. So when I saw it, and I'm looking for everyone else to be like, is this normal? And everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, no. And so I wish I could have had that opportunity again because I wasn't the child he wanted.
Okay.
He thought he was getting a 7-year-old. And I came fully functioning, fully independent, raised to parent. I was raised to parent. I say to my mum, she raised me to be the parent she didn't have.
Got you.
So in that capacity, my lens is always from parent. So when I was there, I'm like, this is not parenting, sir. And so the guy said, oh, well, that's not your fault. And I said, well, I would say it's my mum and my dad's fault. Because my mum took me. And there's no nice way to say it. She took me. Do I think she made the right choice? Yes. But she did take me. So that fractured a relationship with my dad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can't say, oh, he just never wanted to have contact with me. Distance was a factor to his absenteeism.
So with regards to that kind of first meeting, so would you say if it had gone differently, do you reckon the kind of where your relationship is with him now, do you reckon it would be quite different? Or
I would hope so.
Okay.
I would hope so. We don't have a relationship now. We have a transactional relationship.
I hear that.
Which is okay for some. It doesn't sit well with me. I have to hold rage when I'm saying that, right? So as I'm saying it's okay, I'm holding in rage when I say it because it's not okay.
Yeah.
But I take that down to a plethora of factors.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the question is, would anyone else here say that they have experienced an absentee parent emotionally or physically?
Do you mind if I jump in? No. I personally don't. So my mum primarily raised me. Gran as well. I live with her at the moment, which is fun. I do have my dad in my life. He's always been around, and I think he's always been a good dad. Always done things to the best of his ability. So I can't really speak on it too tough. I know of a lot of people who have absentee fathers, and it's made a big impression on people. Much like what you're saying. But I can't really speak on it. So I think
but
for me,
that's good.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think if I haven't experienced something myself, I don't really want to speak on it too much.
Would you say that you've had a relationship with someone who's had an absentee parent and had some impact from that?
Yes. Yeah, I a couple of my exes actually. I don't know, but I'm not sure I could kind of narrow down exactly how it's affected them. But I noticed whenever maybe I'd say it's probably affected how they tend to view certain guys.
Okay.
I'd say. And it's not usually in a positive light. I'd say, to be fair. But I don't know if any of you lot have had any kind of experiences with absentee fathers or
Rob. Any absentee,
I don't want to assume.
And that's why I say absentee parent, right?
Yeah, sorry.
No, but it's fine. Mothers can be absent. And I also see the term as absent also relating to mental health.
Okay.
So present in body, absent in mind.
Yeah.
So if you've had a parent that suffered from mental health of any kind or any kind of trauma, sometimes they are there physically, but not there emotionally or mentally because they're dealing with their own mental health as well. So I also see that as some form of absenteeism.
I think that's a good point because I know black people are not a monolith, by the way. But amongst a lot of people that I know in various black communities, there's a lot of mental health, man. A lot of mental health issues, people. And also, like you said, emotional as well. People who, say, provide for you financially, they're there physically, but emotionally, they're not there and they're never there. I won't talk about specific communities, but I have seen certain things with regards to, I guess, just certain parents, loving and caring their child, but just doing it in a very transactional way. But when it comes down to the emotions, it's just not there, and it affects them right through their whole life. They struggle to talk to other people, they struggle to form relationships, they struggle to open up, all of that type of stuff. It's a big issue. It is a big issue.
Okay, that makes sense.
Really, but yeah.
Well, the reason why my mum had to be the great mum she is because of the lack of father in my life.
Okay.
Well, yeah, no, that's wild because it's different from your situation where there was a distance. I've lived my mum has lived at the same address since like the A's. I was at the same address for the 7 years from when I was born to when the old man kicked the bucket.
Okay.
So yeah, it's one of those things where I do think it did have an effect. It made me a lot more, I don't know, I'll say colder because if you don't allow yourself to be open, no one can let you down. Because you become aware, when you get to the age of like maybe 5, 6, you're aware, hold on a second, maybe it's not me, maybe it's not my fault why this person's not about. Maybe it's just that they're just a crap person. Obviously, other siblings have different experiences with the same person, but my personal experience is you weren't there. And it's crazy because that whole thing made me so kind of guarded and I don't want to say dead inside, but emotional, but a huge flipping wall. Now when it's come to me having my kids and stuff, because you're so set in your ways of having like your defenses up, you then have to constantly remember to let the guard down so you don't inflict the same thing on your children. So yeah, that's why I end up just trying to be the dad that I didn't get to my kids. So
it's funny you say that. I was babysitting.
Inspiring stuff, man.
No, it's true. I was babysitting and my godson said, I don't have a dad. And he's, 3?
Right, okay.
Now he's understanding not having a dad, meaning physically in front of you. Not in the term of not having a dad, right? So he's 3, so he doesn't understand that dads are genetically there.
Yeah.
Right? And then he goes, and you don't have a dad, you have a mummy, right? Because he only sees my mum, so we're going with like how 3-year-olds think. They do know, kids very early on, that something isn't... the word. I don't want to use the word normal because that's not the word I'm looking for. But something isn't present. Something isn't present. So he's aware at 3 that he only has a mummy. And so I can understand what you're saying. Quite early on, kids are thinking about why they don't have a, let's say, quote unquote, what they're seeing other children present in their worldview. But I never had that. I swear, I mean, people know me, I never thought about my dad. Like, I never felt like I didn't have a dad.
Okay.
Even though I never spoke to him, maybe I spoke to him twice a year. Like, in my mind, I was never a child who craved for a father.
Okay.
I don't know why. Like Father's Day, I never felt like I've missed out. And maybe because he was in some way accessible. So if I wanted to call him, I could. And just that little bit of having access made that difference.
Okay. Fair enough.
In my mind, I was always going to have a kid by myself. The concept of having a child with someone never occurred to me. Because I just grew up with, and people are going to say it's a bad thing and I've been ruined by single parenting, but not in a negative way. I was like, it's going to be me, my mum, and my baby. Because I never saw, and I'm not saying they didn't struggle, I never saw the single women in my life struggle.
Okay.
From what struggling was from a child's perspective. So to me, nothing seemed abnormal from seeing women who had children by themselves, because I couldn't see any negative consequence with my eyes. I couldn't see it. None of us were doing the things that people say you do when you don't have a dad around. It was very much positivity in any kind of single relationship experience I had. So I never craved a dad until I got to teenage.
And so, okay, why did that change when you became
Because I met him.
Okay.
Don't let your kids meet their father as a teenager. It's just the wrong age. Me and your mum have spoken about that. Wrong age. Puberty and meeting your dad for the first time, not a good plan.
A lot going on.
So, okay, can you kind of remember the feeling or feelings that kind of came up when you first met him?
Disappointment.
Lovely.
And not because, and it's so funny, I never knew I had an expectation.
Okay.
I thought I was going there with my heart still open because I never had any ill feeling towards him. I just got there, and when I saw how he parented my siblings, I was like, nah, this can't be my dad. And that sounds bad, but that's how I felt at the time. But, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Because your kid's always going to miss the parent that's not there.
Yeah.
Unless, like, your experience where they haven't shown up at all, and then you have that wall that you spoke about. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because then you're like...
So, speaking of that wall, just because when you were talking, Rob, you having to kind of actively pay attention to certain things, like, have you found, is it a case of like your kids doing something or saying something and then you notice something in you, or like, how does it run for you, essentially?
Truth be told, it's one of them things where, you know what, it's crazy. Even things like them kids coming up to me and saying I love you and whatnot. Yeah, man.
You love who, sir?
Yeah, safe.
That's bro.
Me.
I'm marrying this equation. Okay, cool. Yeah, I like this.
That's a good point. Mattering. Yeah. So absentee parenting for you felt in some regards that you didn't matter. 100%.
100%. So that's why it's kind of weird. Then when you're on the upper end of the dynamic, suddenly there's someone's like, right, yeah, man, you're my world. Like.
So even in the midst of having a consistent parent, the absentee parent can still impact you in a way that you feel that you don't matter.
Yeah, because I mean, especially as a little boy, the person that you idolize the most is the parent that matches you. So little boys, you can look at your dad and say, this is the guy, this is the one. So if they're not there, you start feeling like, raw. Okay, then.
Can I ask you a question? Was the absentee parent ever spoken about?
Incidentally, yeah, but never in a negative light. It's always a kind of a matter of fact sort of thing, like just like little anecdotes and whatnot.
But do you think it was spoken about in a way that could allow your brain to understand it wasn't a matter of not mattering? I think as a community, we have to start answering questions at the child level.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Because then the child doesn't have to make their own story. Because we're good at making our own stories as children. We create the dialogue that is missing, like not mattering and things of that nature. We create those stories because we have those feelings. And if we never, I feel like if your child asks about their dad, you should have a conversation about the dad. Otherwise, you leave the child to create.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
I've noticed that a lot working in early years. Not talking about them as if they're Voldemort doesn't work. It don't work.
So with regards to your dad, in terms of him not being super present, has that impacted you going into what you do now? Has it played any part at all, or would you say that it's quite unrelated?
You mean early years?
Yeah.
No, that's just because I'm following my mum's footsteps. But other than that, there's no other, to me, again, that could just be me speaking ignorantly. But for me, I noticed that as a community, we withhold from those tough conversations, and it doesn't do the child good. In my house, if he comes to my house and wants to talk about his dad all day, we're talking about I will pretend I know the man.
Okay.
He's going to say, oh yeah, he likes football, and I'm going to have those conversations because I know as a child, the non-conversation is worse. To me.
That's a good shout. That's a good shout, man. Definitely.
Can I do a Father's Day for my dad? Yeah. Will he get it? Be honest, I don't know, but we can still try and send it. That is as best as you've got. Just give it.
Yeah.
No.
Nice try. How about you?
How about me? Have I experienced
an absentee
parent? Thinking about it, I think I've honestly experienced it both mentally from both parents.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like I experienced it with my mum when she was going through her depression. It's like she couldn't see anything but her depression, and I had to step up at about 13, 14, and I had to be the parent for her because of the things that she was doing that wasn't well for herself. So I felt like I had to then become a parent because my mum and dad split up before I was born. And she had married to someone else, and then he'd become unwell with bipolar, and he just went off the rails and lost his business, and everything just went downhill, and my mum became depressed from that, not realizing how much it impacted her. I think she's still coming out of the other end of depression now. And she never saw it. She never realized that she was in a depression, but I saw that for her. So at that point, I feel that she was absent as a mum because I had to step up and try and help her out, get her out of bed when she didn't want to get out of bed, and when she wasn't working and she was just in darkness, drinking cough medicine, cocodamol, all the things that she was doing, hanging around with wrong people, and she was just a mess. And brought me into a depression, which I managed to get myself out of. Long story, try to cut it short. And I would say my dad I feel like when I was a child, up to a certain age, he was there. And it's like, I feel that when he got into the relationship that he's in now, this was from when I was about 9, he became absent. And I felt like he just wasn't that interested. He was more for this other lady that he's with. And even just to this day, like, me and my dad don't have a good relationship. When I moved out when I was about 19, he wasn't happy about that, and we had a big falling out over that. And I just remember certain things from when I was a kid growing up. You know, when you had like school plays and your parents would be invited, my mum was always there and my dad never was. You know, he never said he loved me until one day when we was watching a movie, and I was probably about 15, and I said, "Oh, love you, Dad," as a joke, and he said it back as a joke. Like, that's the first memory I have of him ever saying that he loved me. And I think I've always grown up kind of hoping that he'll acknowledge me.
Sorry, Joe, just
Go for it.
when you said about him saying it back, did you pick up that he said it in jest, or did you feel he said it genuinely, or?
I felt he just said it because I had said it.
Okay.
Because we was in the cinema, we was watching a movie, and I'm sure it was something to do with The Rock. And he said, "I love you." And then I was like, "Oh, I love you, Daddy." And he was like, "Oh, I love you too." Yeah, I didn't feel he meant it.
Okay.
I don't feel like there is a love. It's really weird. But there's obviously a lot of things that's gone on from when I moved out. But I've always felt that his love for me is because he has to love me, because he was made to be a dad when he didn't want to be.
Right, got you.
From what my mum's told me, before I was born, she was pregnant and he'd made her get rid of the baby. And when she found out she was pregnant with me, he had wanted her to get rid of me as well. So I've always felt a disconnection, like, he has to be a dad. He doesn't want to. He has to love me, but he doesn't want to. It's like, oh, I'm a dad now, so I just have to get on with it. There's nothing I can do about it. Unfortunately, it wasn't my choice, but I've been put in a position where I have to be. There's never been... Maybe I watch too much movies to know what a dad should be.
Have you ever asked him if your mum's story is correct?
No. No, I haven't. I suppose I've always wanted to protect mum because mum can tell stories as well.
Yeah.
So, and when she told me that, I was about 16.
See, that teenage stuff?
Yeah, exactly. I was about 16 and I was like, okay, but it's like, I almost used that as an answer for how my dad used to treat me anyways, because I used to always feel I've got a cousin on my dad's side that's a female, and the affection that he showed to her, he never showed to me. So if we was at family events, he would like have her sit with him, he'd be hugging her. If we got in an argument where she attacked me first and I defended myself, everyone would be on my side but my dad. He'd be comforting her, put her on his lap and hug her and comfort her. My grandma would make me sit with her and say, no, Serena, your cousin, was in the wrong, not you. Shanice was just defending herself. Everyone else in the room would say it, but Dad was like, no, Shanice is older. She knows better. So
I wish we had a therapist on this show. Because at that point, but yeah.
Yeah, they'd be able to give some insight.
Yeah, and that's what it is, giving some insight into what creates that behaviour.
When I did start going to counselling to kind of deal with the trauma of when I moved out of home, and
I knew you then, right?
Yeah,
I knew you then. Okay.
Yeah. After, it was not long after uni. Yeah, when I moved out, because I had a big argument with my mum, my dad, moved out of home and didn't speak to my mum and dad for a few months. And Dad, I feel that my dad has a hatred towards me. I've always felt he's had some sort of dislike towards me, but when I moved out and he turned up at my grandparents' house. I'm quite open, so I speak just about anything.
Yeah.
And he turned up to my grandparents' house, and he was like, he looked at my grandparents, he said, "Oh, Shanice, she's a poison. She's a snake. Don't listen to what she says." And I just remember sitting there and just being like, I was in shock. My grandparents were in shock, and they were just like, my granddad got so mad and said, "Get out the house." They don't want nothing to do with him. They're just like, "How could you say that?" And it was always like, just where did that come from? And
do you think that, again, culturally, do you think that because so many events happen and no conversations take place about the events once the event has taken place, it makes it more difficult to then have a relationship because nothing is ever spoken about from the past?
yeah,
Like, if you were able to sit with him and hash all of these things out, and I'm sure he would have nothing interesting to say, and I don't mean that in a rude way.
no,
Some people aren't ready to admit, not, and I'm not going to say blame, to talk openly about things that have happened and just give explanation.
yeah.
If that doesn't happen, then the conversations can be pointless. But do you think if he was an open person and you could hash these things out, it might make a connection where that connection is missing?
Yeah, it could. And I've tried.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
for sure, I know.
I know. I tried with him. I tried to say, "Daddy, can we sit down and can we just," I said, I think a couple of years after it happened, I said, "Can we have a conversation? Can we wipe the slates clean and start again?" And he was just like, "I have to build the trust." And I was like, "What trust? What trust did I break from moving out of my mum's house? You guys went together. I moved away from her. You knew the situation that was at home why I had to leave. I couldn't deal with my mum's depression anymore. It made me depressed." And he was just like, "I need to build the trust." And he sees it as me moving out was me thinking that I was a big grown woman
Because you were.
and that
Because
I
you were,
knew the
because you
world.
had been parenting yourself since the age of 13, and you knew that it wasn't a good environment for you, so you were grown enough to look after a parent, so therefore you're grown enough to parent yourself to say, this is the decision that I have to make for myself. Again, black people are not a monolith. We have to get out of this thing that children have no voices, children have no say, children have no opinions, and any version of an opinion is back chat. When I look back, looking at gentle parenting now, I was gentle parented.
Okay.
I didn't have, let's say if we have a name for it, I was a gentle parented child. My mum did beat me a couple times, but she never felt good doing it because she was pressured socially to do it.
Okay.
Because I was a terror by nature.
Nice.
And she always made me speak. So I never was afraid to say anything to anyone. And that doesn't mean disrespectfully. Just, if I had an opinion in my mum's environment, I was allowed to have an opinion. And we had conversations because she taught me that children had space. It wasn't a actual age, children should be seen and not heard. I didn't grow up like that. Now we call that, well, it's always been called gentle parenting, right? She believed in conversation and not beatings. So, like what you're saying, this idea that when your children have an opinion, that it's back chat and it's talking back and it's disrespect and children should be obedient. I think that people, culturally, we think children are animals. No, but I don't even mean that as a joke. Because when you say those words without context, it does sound animalistic. Listen, obey, follow, no voice. Without context, that doesn't sound like a human being. It sounds like, you're training a dog.
Yeah, get you. I
Do you
get
know what I'm trying to say? We're dealing with this thing where any kind of opinion or voice or want or need was seen as disobedience and disrespect, which creates mental health.
Yep.
And then when children say they have mental health, now they're sensitive. Because apparently in our community, as long as you're not pregnant or in jail, parenting is done. Not being in jail and not being pregnant is not a sign of good parenting. It's just not. I'm sorry. That expectation is very low. Greasing up your child's face every day till they're shiny is great, but it doesn't equate to good parenting. And again, people don't want to say it. I've worked in nurseries. I can see the areas that our children are lacking in. And emotional regulation and feeling valued and wanted is a big gap for children of colour. Again, I'm not saying it's not happening in other cultures, but I'm speaking about what I know and what I see, especially with boys. It's clear and evident. And because girls are more so raised to nurture, they're getting it more. Where boys are raised to just exist in some regard. That's how I see it. Like boys, and I think if we could balance it a bit more, girls aren't really allowed to play as much because they need to be taken care of.
Okay.
Like, take care of this, take care of that. Boys are left to play more, but then they're not getting the nurture that some girls are getting. But from what you're saying, if the conversation never happens, how would you say that's affected the relationships that you've had with friends, partners?
I feel like it's probably, it's nearly all my people around me that have told me it's affecting your relationships. Because I suppose, I don't know, maybe when I get into a relationship, putting myself in a situation and staying in a situation which I know isn't healthy for me, just because I'm getting that love. But it's like, it's weird. I don't know if I feel like I've been looking for that love from my dad. Well, in a relationship, I've always been wanting my dad to acknowledge me, my dad to be proud of me, for him to say well done, and to just see that he actually has a daughter, because I feel like he doesn't even treat me at times as a daughter, even around family and just family events not being included, and whatnot.
So we know that an absentee parent does make some impact.
Very much so.
In relationships, it definitely, I would say I only realised older that not having a father impacted me. So I feel like I'm experiencing the disdain or discord that he has with her, but it's a lived experience through me.
Parents' resentments towards children. Can you speak on that at all?
I don't know, it's so sad. And it has a very negative impact because it's unexplained and it feels like it's come from nowhere. I can say it sounds like that from your experience. I can only say that it sounds like that's what you're experiencing. And then I've seen it with other girls. I don't know. It seems, I don't know, this could be a thing, but it seems that with girls, there's a fractured relationship. And then with boys, there's no relationship. That seems to be a pattern. Sometimes when a male has an absent father, there's nothing.
Yeah.
But when a girl has an absent father, it's more that it's inconsistent. In my experience, not in in the world kind of thing. So I do think children are living out resentment from parents, especially with bad co-parenting. They are starting to live it. And those fractures in the relationship starts to feel like, well, actually, is it me you dislike or is it my mother? And why can you not differentiate us at this point in time? It's tricky. And that, I'm sure that happens for men too, boys too. But because we're not having these conversations, it just leaves a lots of emotions that you have to learn to regulate by yourself, which isn't healthy. I'm sure many men have suffered my absentee issues. I'm just saying. I'm sure they have suffered.
So like for everyone here, like how have you lot kind of learned to try and regulate certain emotions and feelings, particularly with regards to these topics? Or have you not? Do you still struggle with them?
Counselling.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to counselling for the dad situation because it was to a point where I would go to the house because my brother and sister are there, not through my mum, through their mum, but I still call them my brother and sister, half brother, half sister. Nah, doesn't work. They're my brother and sister. And I would only go there to see them, and it got to a point where he would leave the room as soon as I'd get there, and he'd stay upstairs, and then he'd come down hours later and be like, I think it's time for you to go home now.
Sir, we need you to stop. We need you to stop, sir.
It's like, are you his child or his enemy?
Yeah. That's what, yeah, when people hear their story, they're just like, what did you do, Shanice? And I'm like, I really don't know. And that's what I battled with, is I was like, what have I done to him to make him dislike me so much? I felt that I was a bad daughter, that I'd done something so wrong to make him not want to know me at all. And I was just like, seriously, like even on my grandma, not to get a bit morbid, but on my grandma's deathbed, she was in hospital for 4 days. I did before she died. I wasn't told. all the family knew. They all got to say their goodbyes. They knew
on your dad's
side.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have said that. They all knew that she was going and that she didn't have long. And he didn't tell me a word. She had asked for me at the hospital, and I didn't know a thing. I got a call from Dad, and I was like, "Why did you leave me a message? Dad don't message me." This called him back, and he said, "Grandma's died," and I was like, "What?" Went down to the house, held him as he cried in my arms, and he told me, "Yeah, she was asking for you. She's been in hospital since Saturday."
We're
this was
gonna pray
Wednesday.
for your dad.
Yes.
We're gonna pray for him. No, real talk.
I was like, I just remember sitting there and just holding him and just being like, okay. She asked for me. She's been in hospital 4 days. No one thought to tell me. Okay. So, yeah.
So when is there time to process your emotions? There isn't.
No, there wasn't. Yeah.
There can't be space for you to process your own emotions because now you're having to deal with his grief.
Yeah.
When he could have done that with another wife.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't have to do that with you.
Me. Yeah.
So again, you're pushed into the role of a parent.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, there was a lot of times that I was just like, he's got something against me. When my granddad passed on his side as well, he texted me and said, your granddad died. And he was like, what? So it was just a lot of times, even for my grandma's last birthday, they were having a surprise party and was not told anything about it. It's always, I always feel like he's against me for some reason. Even when the family invite everyone, it's like Glenn and kids, but only my brother and sister will go because I just don't get known. And when I do see the family, it's like, oh, you didn't come to this. Oh, your cousin got married. Oh, is it? No, I didn't know that. Oh, your cousin's got a child. Oh, is it?
So let me ask a question.
Didn't know that.
Would you have your kids around your dad?
See, this has been something that I questioned myself, but I said to myself, if he is willing to be a grandparent to them, then I will allow him to be around my child or my children, but I do not want to be a part of that. If he chooses to put them through any kind of hurt that he's put me through, I don't want him around them. If he's going to be around them, he needs to love them and he needs to be there for them. I will not affect the relationship that he has with them. Not at all. I won't get involved in that.
So another question. Do you think it is appropriate for your kids to see you mistreat him? Under the guise of, he's a great grandparent, but he doesn't love me. So is it? So this is the gap that I think that sometimes we miss. Are you going to tell them why, or are you just not going to do it? Because then again, we have stories, right? I can't share space with your granddad because me and him have a fractured relationship. But I want you to have a relationship with him versus the action without the words.
Yeah.
Because the action without the words again. Creates that mystery. They know that something's wrong. They can feel that something's wrong. But again, it becomes unspoken. And then unknowingly, we're creating the same havoc. Although it feels like an adult decision, the adult decision is words. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if not, they know. Like children know because they spend most of their life figuring out things emotionally before they have words. So when you think about those decisions, I encourage you to think about telling them the truth at their level and not leaving it an empty space.
Oh, no. I definitely believe you'd have to tell them because even my brother and sister, they've experienced our relationship, even though I try not to impact them. Obviously, they see it. Me not going to the house as much and me not being there was like, oh, you don't want to see us. And as they grew older, I would always tell them, I love you. But I said, when you're old enough for me to be able to speak to you about it, I said, I will explain to you why I'm not around so often. And when they got to a certain age, I don't know if that was the right decision, but I felt that they'd have to be older to be able to understand what I would be telling them. And when they were old enough, I sat down and I had a conversation and I told them everything that I'd actually been through with him. And they were just like, my brother was speechless. He was like, I didn't know. I never knew that. And I was like, I never want you to feel that I don't want to be there because of you guys. They were the only reason that I would be around my dad. Otherwise, I would have stopped dealing with my dad from years ago. I would have said, I don't want nothing to do with you. I didn't want nothing to do with him. The hurt of going there, my mum said, why do you still go there? I would come home crying every day because
you're seeing them live the life you wanted.
Seeing them live the life. And I never felt, don't get me wrong, I never felt any way towards them. I was happy that they were being loved. But there's even, with my brother, there's still that disconnect as well. My brother's very affectionate like me, and he doesn't get that affection from his dad. And through going back to the counselling, the counsellor that I spoke to, she said that it's not necessarily, have you ever thought that it's not necessarily your dad not loving you? It's just that it could be from his childhood, he wasn't shown affection, so he doesn't know how to show his love for you.
Yeah, I get you.
So it's not that he doesn't like you or that he's got a problem with you. He just doesn't know how to show that he does love you. Because she said, did he get affection from his parents? And I said, not from what I've known from him growing up. Different.
He's got a lived experience of the same thing, not having a father who was present to show him the things he needs and making an active choice to parent his children differently. So again, capacity does come into the conversation. Some people have the capacity to change and some people don't have the capacity to change without the right adequate support.
Yeah.
But it's very easy, I found, to make the same mistakes by trying not to be the person you despise. Never focus on the person you don't want to become. Focus on the person you want to become, because unknowingly you just end up like them by trying to do everything they didn't do.
It's a very interesting one. Yeah, I've definitely seen that, whether it's friends or previous partners, without looking to bait out anyone. I don't know, man.
How do you think we can not resolve, because we're not miracle workers. Do you think that conversations like this can help give perspective to the older generation?
Yes, I do. However, of course, it always comes down to the whole thing of being willing to actually listen. And I don't mean just hearing the words, actively listening, which... Okay, so in my household, a certain individual who I live with, listening is not their strong point unless you're kind of buttering up their ego, pretty much. Love them to bits, by the way, disclaimer. But it's just, people don't want to listen, man. It goes over people's heads, and people aren't willing. I think it's it comes down to the whole kind of constructive criticism thing. I think like a lot of people cannot take constructive criticism. They hear criticism and it's automatically destructive. They don't want to hear it. You're criticizing me. I'm not prepared to take it on board. And then they get defensive and then they start attacking you. And
it's a vicious cycle.
It's a very vicious cycle, man. Like conversations like this, I think, are very helpful and very insightful, but only if you listen to it and take it on board and then potentially go to implement it. Like, you can say something and you can disagree with it. That's fine. But have the dialogue, man. Like, have the flipping dialogue. It's so important. Obviously, it doesn't just come down to that. There are obviously other factors at play. But I think the dialogue is a good place to start, I would say.
Yeah, I think the conversations are important. I think it's important I think one of the traps that we get into is, as long as I did a better job than my parents, then it's good for my child. Which is not necessarily the truth.
True.
And I think that's why I wanted to have the whole Black people are not a monolith, because I think there needs to be a place where Black people can find alternatives to the status quo.
Yeah.
Like hearing parent stories, hearing single people stories. I can't spend my time debating the same things that every other podcast is debating, not because they're not good topics, but there needs to be a place where other conversations are happening that I find them to be quite volatile at some point as well. Because I don't think we're focusing on solution. I think we're focusing on who's right and who's wrong. Not understanding that two things can be true at the same time. And I think if we keep fighting, the progress is going to be even slower than we need it to be.
Agreed.
So, okay. So let's say 3 out of 4 of us have experienced an absentee parent. Would you say that is accurate statistics?
Oh, what? Just in general?
Just in general.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I'm just trying to think in terms of. I'm not sure it would be accurate to say I know more people who have an absentee parent, usually father. But I know a lot.
That's a good question, though. Why do you think absentee parentism impacts men more? We don't have the statistics, which we should have, than it does women.
I mean, I guess kind of picking up Rob's point, that thing that you said about you kind of looking to the person who is like you. So the boy looking to the boy, the girl looking to the girl. And I think I've seen it from certain guys is, okay, we're always told, right, this is what a man should be. Particularly, obviously, this is the trending topic on the socials right now. Okay, a man should be this, a man should be that. Obviously, if you don't have one around you, or you don't have any positive ones around you, then you're having to kind of form your own ideal. And of course, one of the first places people go to is social media.
Or local community.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, I'm not going to say I don't believe in local community. I don't think it exists in the same form that it probably did going back
in the day.
10, 20, 30 years. I mean, I think definitely social media is a go-to for a lot of kids now. It's easily accessible. Everyone else does it. You're going to see this. This is what a man is. This is what a man is. And often, as we already know, like social media is, one, it can be an echo chamber. Two, it's just straight up lies a lot of the time.
Let's digress to the side quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
What do you think a man is?
Oh Lord, don't do this.
Sorry, wait.
I'll walk off the podcast now, you know.
What characteristics for you? Because I think what a man is very subjective and should be personal to one person. Right?
Yeah.
So to you, if you were to describe the characteristics you think a man should have, and let's be very clear. Men are not there to serve women, and women are not there to serve men. So when I ask you what do you think a man is, I don't think what you think a man is in terms of what he should provide for women, because that's clear. But in your mind, what makes a good man to you? Yeah.
And you know, I think this is interesting because when I was younger, without getting too open and vulnerable, guys, I remember I always used to think, because I would see guys around me and they would always say, look a certain way. So in my mind, I always used to visually, right, this is what a man should be. And I always remember looking at myself and be like, oh, I'm not that. Basically. So I always used to feel like I was never going to be able to kind of measure up to a degree. But anyways, that's a different topic for another day. I don't know. I think for me, in terms of what I view a man being, I think it is definitely more characteristic based. I've kind of moved away from the whole kind of physical aspect and more characteristic. So someone who's honest, I guess a lot of things that you could obviously move over to women as well, but someone who's honest, someone who can be quite decisive, you know, not always sitting on the fence, basically. You know, someone who's, I think the biggest one, someone who keeps their word as well.
Yeah.
Very, very important. I mean, I will always say to people, like, if you can't be anything, just be a man of your word, quite frankly, you know. I guess other things I can't think of off the top of my head. But yeah, just general traits and characteristics.
How about you,
I
Rob?
guess.
I mean, I agree with what Christian's saying in terms of integrity. I mean, I tell my kids this all the time. If you don't have a penny to your name, as long as you have your word,
amen,
that costs you nothing.
Amen.
So
preach it, man.
And it can also cost you so much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So, what would you want to tell a parent about? Okay, let's do it this way. What would you like your parent to know that was absent? Now, I know you said two, but pick one. You don't want them to cry afterwards. What would you like them to know that they could have done differently?
That's a hard one. It'd have to be dad. Just it could have been more present, shown more of an interest. I always felt like I was fighting to get some, like, a well done. Like, I think some people don't realize, especially for a child, they really remember a lot of things as a child. Like, if you drew a picture and showed it to your mum or your dad and they just didn't get excited or they ignored you, like, that's something that you grow up with and it's always ingrained in you. So it's just the little things like, well done. Even if you fall down and you don't do good, and it's like, it's okay, you'll do better the next time. Just kind of like almost like words of affirmation, just speaking to your child.
Love languages, man. Love
languages. Just literally just saying, acknowledging, and just taking the time to actually speak to your child. Like, it's not always speaking at them, but actually speaking to them.
Preach, sister. Okay, and Rob. Be nice now. No, be honest.
What would I like to say?
What would you have liked them to have done differently if their opportunity? I know this sounds so crazy because you already said. But what could have been done differently? Okay, what's your advice to fathers out there who are currently absent?
Well, that's a tricky one because some people are absent for different reasons, though. So,
But just generally.
So absent in exactly the same way that
Let's
mine
go with
was?
that. Absent in the exact same way. Which you can see
Absent
the
in
face.
exactly the same way that
the
mine
same
was.
way. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your child still lives in the same address you knew they lived in when they were born.
Visit your child, sir.
And they've lived in that same address the year after that, the year after that, the year after that, the year after that. Your co-parent has not changed the phone number. Same phone number. You can pick up the phone. This is just assuming that you're a waste man who hasn't taken the time to go and visit your child for 7 years of his life.
So your message would be...
Get in touch. Get on the bus.
Talk to your child.
Get your little bus pass.
Right.
Jump on the bus. Make your way to that house that they have not moved from in the 7 years since they've been born. And talk to them.
Because the excuse of I didn't know where you were doesn't fly.
You know where that child is.
So then, let me put this one to you lot. So what about in situations whereby, say, a child is now brought into this world and the dad genuinely just doesn't want anything to do with the child? Do you feel like, the dad, he doesn't want to be there. Do you feel he should still attempt to keep in contact with the child even if it's going to be half-heartedly? Or do you feel it's better not to be there at all?
No, and that has been my advice. If you have a parent that you know is not a safe place for your child, for whatever reason, emotionally, physically, financially, right? Maybe let's take financially out, right? But they're not a safe place for your child. You need to know that your child is in a safe space, and it's okay to give people time to be ready to be the parent they need to be. If you have a child with someone, and this is not to anyone specific because it sounds so personal. If you have a child with someone and the relationship has been rocky and you get pregnant, you cannot then put unrealistic expectations and pretend that pregnancy solves maturity. It doesn't, on both sides, male or female, right? If you have a child with someone who is already apprehensive of being a father, maybe that's the situation, you have to be realistic on your expectations. Right? Still have them, but be realistic, in my opinion. But also allow time for that person to grow, but it doesn't mean your child has to be there in their growing stage. It is for that person to explain why they haven't been there and be honest about why they haven't been there. But do not expose your children to unsafe people under the guise of they need a positive role model. I do believe you should leave that space open for that parent to enter with explanation. Not enter by, oh, your dad's here. No. You're going to have a conversation with my child and I'm going to be there and you're going to explain what it is you had to go through to feel that this was now the time that you're ready. Children are very intelligent and they're very empathetic. If you give them the information that they need, they can come to the right conclusion, but also be prepared for rejection. But to let some random person, man or female, come at 16 and be like, I'm ready to be your dad, is wild without the conversation. And if you don't want to have that conversation with my child, you will not be speaking to them until the child is ready to go and find you themselves. But to allow your child around unsafe people under the guise of a positive role model does more damage than you can ever, because now that is their role model. I think the space should always be open because the child will hate the parent who the parent says no to, right? But it has to be done in a responsible, and okay, yes, I don't have kids. No, I don't have a husband. No, I don't have a man. And this can seem like very ridiculous advice, but I think too much in our communities, we think that children don't know things when they do know them. And conversations are needed because children are not stupid. Let them explain to that child what has taken them 3 years to be present, and let the child make a choice whether they want that person in their life or not. And if the person still wants to try and you're open to having that conversation, like you don't want to talk to them, that's fine. Do you want to talk about it? No. That other parent who has been absent has to deal with that rejection as well. And that's what we do as adults. But I think that it can't just be, oh yeah, come in and come out as you want. It's just unsafe for mental health, especially.
Yeah, got you.
But it's tricky.
It's definitely tricky.
What about you?
Me?
No absentee parent.
No.
What would you tell parents about the benefits of not being absent? How has it benefited you?
I think a better emotional state. I think one of the issues I tend to see amongst a lot of kids, and I definitely see this from, because I have a few friends that are teachers, basically, and I'm sure you can maybe even confirm or deny. I guess the whole theme of when you don't have someone around, there is usually some type of emotional issue that will develop either at the time or later on in life. I think just from an emotional standpoint, basically. So try and be around your kids, and try and talk to them, much like you were saying. I think talking is so important, man. It's so important. Like the whole value of... So for example, and it's not completely related. So one of my best friends, so he passed away some years ago now. It's cancer that he had. And I think if I didn't have anyone to talk to, I would have ended up down a very, very kind of dark path. I still have a lot of, I think, healing to do from it as well. But having people around me who I could talk and engage with about it was such a massive help, like beyond anything else, really. So, and when you're talking about a parent, someone who you will look up to and idolize, you put so much more weight on their words. So, I think just talking, man. Like, if you're going to be in the child's life, and I agree with what you say, like, I feel if you're going to be inconsistent, it's probably better if you're just not there at all, to be fair. But if you are going to be there, like, talk to your kids, man. Like, ask them questions, and don't just talk at them. Like, learn how they think and how they perceive things, because like you said, kids are not stupid. They take in everything. Like, I always hear this thing of, oh, well, where did you learn that? Or where did you pick this up?
Life.
Like, literally, they are literal little sponges.
Yeah, they are.
Loud, annoying little sponges. Like, they will just soak everything up. So,
and they never pick up the things you want them to.
Exactly.
It's the things you try to make them avoid. They're like, oh, fuck, where'd you get that from? That one time you said it.
Like, exactly. So, I think just having the conversation with them and encouraging them to embrace their emotions, because I know a lot of people talk about, guys are not in tune with their emotions. They are, just flipping anger and annoyance pretty much. And you need to encourage them to embrace other sets of emotions, because it's wide and varied, particularly for guys, So
I had one absent parent, and I had my mum who was stable and consistent, and I would say absent in some parts. The dialogue of parents not being your friend is very dangerous. My mum and me are friends and have always been friends, but that never took away from her being my parent. I don't know where this idea of your parents being your friends has turned into, I'm not one of your little friends. I know that's banter, but children go to their friends. When your child is in trouble, you want them to go to you, not the other friends. Redemption is a thing that children need, especially if there's an absentee parent, because they are maybe more likely to make choices that are unhealthy for them. And if they know that you are a safe place to tell them things that they have done that are unsafe without judgment to some degree, but without punishment, you make them safer. The points of my life where I have made the biggest mistakes is because I was more afraid of telling my mum the truth than the consequence that I was going to have to face. And my mum was still very friendly with me to a point.
Okay.
But at the points that I felt most vulnerable, I knew that her parent voice would come first. Sometimes you need the friend voice, and you can still be parented while being your child's friend, I believe. Again, no, I'm not a parent. No, I don't have kids. But from what I've learned, especially from working in child protection, from working with young children and experiencing absentee parentism myself, You want your children to be able to tell you when they're doing unsafe things so you can guide them as best as you can. You don't want their peers to guide them to unsafe things. So I think that if we can get our heads around, you can still be a parent and a friend, because we all have dual relationships in our friendships. As my friend, you don't tell me what I want to hear. I don't understand where there's things where your friends just tell you where you want to hear it came from. That ain't never been my story. Yeah. I'm just saying. I don't know any of those
Hey, you did what? Are you dumb?
Right? I think, and then if you can be a good parent to your friend, they probably, a good friend to your child, they probably will pick better friends. Because they have you as an example of what a friend could be like. So I think if your child has an absentee parent and you're hell-bent on that you're not their friend, you may find that that's a dangerous road to walk down, because they are going to make errors that maybe a child who had more stable upbringing won't make, just because that's how life works, and you want them to be your safe place. If your child cannot say no to the person who's supposed to love them unconditionally, they cannot say no to a stranger. If they can't say no to you in their home, they cannot say no to someone who's causing them harm outside. Because if you're their safest person and they can't say no to you, and yes, no can be said respectfully, if they can't be safe in their own home, they can't be safe outside. And that's some of the things I think we need to really think about when you are an absent parent, because we know that there can be consequences of that that lead to other things. So I think as a whole, we can see the benefits of not being absent. Sometimes absenteeism is something we cannot stop. No one, I don't believe any woman wakes up and any man wakes up saying, I'm going to be an absent parent. I just don't believe in that. Things happen, right? But like you said, we have choices, and the choices we make for our children matters. And some parents need therapy. I'm just putting it out there, right? No?
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Just a lot.
I didn't say that. You said that.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah. Okay.
And shout out to the Sound Bank for...
Shout out to the Sound Bank for giving us a safe space and affordable space for us to hold our podcast. We are very, very grateful. It's very comfy in here.
Much so,
and the hospitality was great. We found them on Hot Patch.
Nice.
A star. Thank you.